want to say thank you to Henry Schein for giving us the opportunity to offer this course to our viewers. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and jump into things. So today we are going to talk about the 8 revenue cycle management tools that you can't live without. So here at eAssist, we invented optimized revenue cycle management and front office services for dentists. For more than 10 years, eAssist has been putting money back into the pocket of the nation's dedicated dentists, reducing the stress of their teams and creating more reliable cash flow. So our team is actually made up of dental billing experts serving over 1,900 dental offices and DSOs. And to date, we have collected more than $6.67 billion from insurance companies. So safe to say, I think we know a little bit about what we're doing. Here are some of the amazing awards that we have won. I'll let you guys kind of look that over. I'm not one to really kind of try to highlight us. I think our reputation sort of speaks for itself. So how can eAssist help your practice succeed? So we offer actually a comprehensive suite of solutions in all the areas that you see right here listed on your screen. And they truly help practices be more efficient, profitable, and patient-focused. So this is a little bit about me. Hopefully, the people who are watching this can read. I'm going to go ahead and try to skip to some of the good stuff and let you guys know that my name is Tiffany Wesley. Some of you may know me as Tiffany Maley, and I really am honored to be here with you guys tonight. And again, thank you to Henry Schein for creating this opportunity. So what we are really hoping that you are going to take away from today would be, number one, the best tools and resources in your practice management software to improve and track your cash flow. We want you to see how just 10 minutes a day can improve your revenue cycle management and set clear expectations for your team and patients. And then we also want you to know or take away that the most common revenue cycle management roadblocks really are 100% avoidable. Good news. So approximately 2/3 of Americans are enrolled in private insurance, and that number continues to grow. What this means for you is that it's important to keep a close eye on your revenue cycle management. Today, we're going to be talking about 8 specific revenue cycle management tools that you can't live without. So the first one here we're going to talk about would be morning huddles. I really can't tell you guys how many times I go into practices and I hear, oh, we don't have huddles. We don't need them. Or we don't have time for huddles. That just means that the team's going to have to get here earlier and I am going to have to pay more money than I already do. But I really want to put it this way and say that you don't have time to not have morning huddles. So funny story, I actually had a doctor that really gave me a lot of pushback on having these. And eventually, over time, he finally caved and endured that 10 minutes a day, partly because I think he really wanted to prove me wrong. But then something really started to happen. The team was communicating, things were getting done. I think Doc was super excited because there was money in the bank. And the whole morale went up in the office, and he was starting to come into the office every day trying to start that morning huddle even earlier because he loved it so much. So this is literally the most practical and logical way to maximize effectiveness and efficiency in your practice. So we're going to take a poll here really quick. We want to know, what do you guys discuss in your morning huddle? Do you talk about outstanding balances for patients? Are you talking about outstanding insurance claims that for whatever reason you guys haven't been able to get paid? Are you talking about The Bachelorette and if everybody caught the last episode or the season finale? Are you talking about what you did last weekend or what you guys have planned over Labor Day weekend coming up? What is it exactly that you guys are talking about?
And Tiffany, as some of our audience members are responding, it seems like 67% of them are discussing pinpointing areas of weakness and working to improve their morning huddles, followed by MTD production, collections, and setting goals.
I love that. That's a growth mindset. That's exactly how you guys are going to get it to where you want to be. I love that. Pinpointing weaknesses and problem solving. That's exactly what huddles are all about. So the most synergized and successful dental teams really use these morning huddles to motivate their teams, to strategize, and really proactively address the potential roadblocks to revenue cycle management. So we have a pro tip here for you. Morning huddles need to be scheduled early enough that they can end at least 5 minutes before the scheduled appointments of the day. This is really important, right? It's important for staying on time. And we want to be there to properly greet our patients as they walk through the door with our beautiful and smiling faces. So how do we keep these huddles efficient and effective? Again, number one, we're going to start on time. If you guys will kind of type in the chat, if you'll let us know, like how long do your morning huddles typically last? You guys stay on time or not? The next thing would be that we don't want these to take any longer than 10 minutes, right? So this should be really kind of straight and to the point. There's no banter or chitter chatter. The entire team needs to be here. I'm going to say that one more time. The entire team needs to be here. And that means you, Doc. You're a part of the team. We need you here. Leadership is really shown in words and in actions. And your team is really going to rise to the level of expectation that you set for them. So being on time and ready for your team with a positive mindset really communicates to them that they're important. It communicates that this huddle is important, and it really kind of gives you an opportunity to show up for them like you really want them to show up for you. So we want to rotate on a weekly basis who is going to be leading this huddle. So it shouldn't always be the same person. Everybody needs to have accountability and kind of buy in to the huddle process. So once a week, just swap out, right? You can assign it ahead of time if that makes you feel great. You can do it last minute if you like a little variety in your life. But somebody different should be doing it every single week. Again, no distractions, right? We're not eating or chatting about personal matters. We're not trying to scarf down that pumpkin spice muffin that we picked up from Starbucks on the way into the office, because everybody knows that when pumpkin spice comes out, it's officially fall. It's really about staying focused and on task so that we can highlight those potential roadblocks. All right, so 10 minutes a day can really help improve your revenue cycle management. So what are we actually going to be talking about in this huddle? We're going to talk about what went right and what challenges we had. So fun fact, when we feel like we have won at something, regardless of how big or how small that win is, our brain chemistry actually really changes and we feel more confident, more focused, we feel smart, our cortisol levels and or stress hormone decreases, and our hormones like testosterone increase, which really makes us more likely to really want to go and tackle those goals that we have set. So an example of a win that you might want to highlight in your huddle would be that super detailed insurance verification that was completed for Mrs. Jones. Let us know ahead of time that the crown that she had completed on number 30 happened about 4 years ago, and her insurance plan has a 5-year replacement clause. So this is important because when Doc was doing his exam, he noticed that that crown on tooth number 30 was defective. And we were ready for that, right? We already knew ahead of time what to expect. So we were able to let Mrs. Jones know up front the investment for her to replace the crown on number 30 and that it wouldn't be covered by insurance. We were able to really provide her an accurate quote. And we already had on hand all the tools and resources that we needed for third-party financing when she asked about whether or not we offered a payment plan. Challenges might be that we ran out of time yesterday because we're super busy and we have 12,000 hats that we're wearing all the time. And so we didn't get all of yesterday's appointments confirmed. And we had 3 patients no-show. Open schedule is awful, right? If we don't have patients on the schedule, we're not bringing in any money. We can't pay our team. We can't pay our bills. So today we really want to make sure that we manage our time well and get all of our appointments confirmed, just in case something happens and we need to make changes to the schedule. We have the time to do that. We are going to talk about what new patients are on the schedule today. We want to highlight any new patients or any emergency patients, and really talk about what it is that's bringing them into the office today. What expectations do they have for their visit? We're going to identify any patients in need of intraoral photos. And this is important to me. I'm very passionate about this. I had an office that really kind of, for whatever reason, was pushing back on this. And finally, they decided to really do what it took to just kind of humor me. And in 9 days, I believe it was, they generated an extra $14,000 in production. And this was a small office in a small town. It wasn't like in a big city. I mean, that was huge for them. So these intraorals are very important, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words. We are also going to be talking about operative patients who are due for recare visits. So who is being seen for that crown prep that doesn't have a hygiene appointment scheduled? I don't care if it's 6 months from now. I don't care if they were just seen here yesterday. If they didn't leave with that recare appointment or that hygiene appointment scheduled, we need to make sure that we get it done, right? We want to be proactive. We're also going to be talking about hygiene patients with unscheduled treatment. So who is being seen for hygiene today that has treatment that's been planned for a while, but for whatever reason hasn't followed through on that? Do we know why? And are they ready today? We're going to also be talking about those changes, openings, opportunities in the schedule. This is important, right? If you are coming in on a Monday, maybe you have a voicemail from a patient canceling an appointment, something changed. Your business team is super on top of things. They've already got somebody in to fill that spot. We need to know what's happening and what that's going to mean for the team as a whole. We want to talk about what openings we have in the schedule. So when we're talking about our new patients or our emergency patients, is there an open time in the schedule where we can complete same-day treatment? How can we serve and take care of these patients today? And then again, those opportunities in the schedule. Next would be patients with financial concerns. So we need to discuss what financial arrangements still need to be finalized. And do we have any collection concerns for anybody that's coming into the office today? Is there anybody that has a balance that's been on their account for a while that we've really struggled trying to collect from? Do we need to talk about payment options with them? How does stock feel about that? Where do we stand with that as a team? And then we also need to be talking about raving fan opportunities. So I love this. This is a chance for us to figure out the new patients that are on the schedule. How did they hear about us? Do we know? Do we know because it's in our practice management software? Or do we know because Betty just remembered, but it's not in there? It has to be in the practice management software because that's how we're going to track those marketing dollars, right? We need to know that what we're investing in is working. And then we're going to identify 3 patients in the schedule to ask for a review. You know, Mrs. Jones, it's so nice to see you. We love patients like you. It would really mean a lot to us if you'll tell your friends and family about us. Again, these are just a few things that are going to be talked about in this huddle. My dear friend and mentor, and the Yoda, I like to call her, of dentistry, our Chief Consulting Officer, Lois Santa. She has an amazing 10-minute huddle template. So next up, would you guys like a complimentary 10-minute morning huddle template from the great, infamous, amazing Lois Santa?
Tiffany, as our audience is answering this question, I got a question about from an audience member. What are the morning huddle changes that you've seen with the onset of COVID-19?
A lot of it is with patients and scheduling. You know, somebody left a voicemail or somebody calls and they say, oh my gosh, my husband just tested positive for COVID. I can't come in today. There are several different strategies I think that some people have been using for this. What I have found that's worked for the offices that I've worked with is they sort of do like a triage scheduling where they have an entire extra column that's not even being used for patients, that they kind of schedule people in those spots. And it's really been able to kind of pop over and feed into production for the day, or they just keep a list of people who are ready and wanting to be seen. I will say a lot of offices aren't struggling for patients right now. A lot of people want to be seen and they need a place to go, especially for emergencies. And they want to make sure that you're going to be open, and they're going to be happy to have you add them to that list.
Thank you, Tiff.
Yeah. So our second tool here in our buckets is multiple payment options. So payment options are really important. They are key, according to the slide, to treatment plan acceptance. So presenting patients with a clear treatment plan and financial agreement that outlines patient options is critical. They really need to know that there's more than one way to get the treatment that they want and that they need. Those clear financial agreements are just super important. And do they have the ability to pay their balances via an online payment portal? Are your patients able to make payments electronically? Or are you super reliant on whether or not that physical check comes in the mail? So I know here at eAssist, our patient portion team, they use a program called Swerve Pay, which allows patients to make a one-time payment via text or email. Do you have something like this that you're offering to your patients? If not, I would highly recommend looking into it. This isn't something like third-party financing, which we'll talk about next. It's literally something that just allows them to make a one-time payment. We also need to make sure that we have third-party financing options available. People want to be able to make payments over time, but it's also important for you to remember that you are not the bank, right? So research options for patient financing that really allows patients that flexibility in how they pay for treatment. But it also kind of lets you remove your bank teller hat, right? Like you don't have to be the bank. I promise you have a million other things that you could be doing right now. So just trust me, right? The best leaders really know how and when to delegate, and it's really worth it. You're just gonna have to lean in with me on that. All right, so our third tool in our buckets would be daily production and collection report. So going over your production in the morning huddle really helps you to see if you're on track to meet your production goals for the week. And if not, it creates an opportunity to figure out how you can get back on track for that, especially if you've got open time in your schedule, right? How can we get back on track to make sure that we are producing what we need to this week, today, this week, this month, to keep us on target and on track? Your collection report. So this is really the funds that are available in your bank to cover your overhead expenses. This is something that really needs to be reviewed daily. And again, goals need to be set, and we need to really work hard to meet those. So do you have accounts with balances that are, say, over 90 days old? What are we doing about it? What's our plan? What plans do we have in process? And it's not, oh, I'm going to work on that. Okay, great. How are you going to work on that? How many accounts are you or patients are you willing to call on today? What's your plan of attack on that? How long do you think it's going to take you to get through that accounts receivable report? Tracking collections is super critical to, again, knowing if you have enough revenue to cover your overhead expenses. So do you know what your collection ratio is? If you don't, you're going to want to take your net production and divide that number by your collections to get your collection ratio. So if for some reason you find that there's a big difference between your gross production and your net production, when you run that report, this is not a collections issue. This is a write-off issue. And that's something that's completely different and needs to be looked at a lot more closely. Net production really tells you how much you actually have to physically put in the bank after write-offs to cover expenses. So ideally, the gross collection ratio for dental practice should be at least 98% per month. In this case, what we are finding is that the average collection ratio for offices is around 93%. Next up would be insurance and patient aging reports. So 70% of dental practices don't even realize that they're leaving about 9% of collectible revenue on the table simply because of missed billing and dental billing and patient billing steps. So the average dental practice, their annual revenue is somewhere around $1.5 million. I don't want you to freak out if you're a solo doc and you're not generating $1.5 million. The average solo practitioner or dentist really is somewhere between $750,000 to $900,000 a year. But in looking at this specific case, right, we want to see how is this going to impact us over time? What does it really mean for me? So if the average dental practice annual revenue is $1.5 million, right, and 9% of that, or this $135,000 we're not collecting, over 30 years, that's over $4 million in revenue. It's not in your bank, right? It's somewhere else, but it's definitely not in your bank. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that I could do a lot with $4 million. So we have a pro tip here for you. Pull your insurance, patient, and aging reports on a regular basis. Review all outstanding balances over 30 days old and follow up to collect that outstanding revenue. So how do you do this, right? You're going to start with claims and accounts that are 90 days past due because those are the most important. And after they reach that point, the longer they stay on the books, right, the harder and harder it's going to be to collect. So you're going to start with any accounts that are over 90 days past due, and then you're going to sort of work backwards until you get to those that are the most current. So all of your outstanding claims should be followed up on a weekly basis, and statements should be sent out to patients at minimum on a monthly basis, depending on the size of your practice. For larger practices, I would highly consider sending statements out either weekly or bi-weekly in alphabetical segments so that you're not inundated with everything kind of all at once, right? It's more manageable. So maybe for the first week of the month, you're going to send statements to patients who have balances with last names A through N. And then maybe the second week, you don't send statements to anybody. And then the third week, you send statements to patients with last names N through Z. Or if you have a ton of patients with the last name Smith, maybe you want to break that up a little differently, but just so it doesn't feel like so much at once. And I also recommend never to send statements out on a Thursday or a Friday if you're open on Fridays. The phone is busy enough on Monday morning. Just let Monday be Monday and send them out on Tuesday, right? You don't want to be inundated with everything else that happens on Monday, in addition to patients calling because they need help understanding why they got a bill in the mail. Something else that you can do would be to send a sample statement to the office so you have a better idea about how long it takes through your particular mail system for patients to be receiving that. And if you would like more information on solutions for how to avoid leaving money on the table, you can always contact the Henry Schein Business Solutions team or your field sales consultants. And there's an email address listed here, businesssolutionsteam@henryschein.com. All right, so number 5 of our revenue cycle management tools is insurance eligibility checks and full verifications. So why is insurance verification crucial to revenue cycle management? So rejections and denials due to incorrect information really are completely avoidable, okay? So sometimes I get this question, what's the difference between a denial and a rejection? So a denial is when the payer or the insurance company has made the official decision that they're not going to pay on this claim. And then there's usually a code or a reason explanation listed at the bottom of the explanation of benefits. A rejection is different. So a rejection happens typically because there's missing information, and for whatever reason, the payer or the insurance company is telling you that they can't physically adjudicate this claim because they don't have the information that they need to do so. These are things that can be avoided, right? So even the smallest error on a claim form can really cause these delays, denials, and roadblocks. Whether or not a patient or subscriber ID number was transposed incorrectly, or maybe it's not even in your software or your system at all. Making sure the date of birth is accurate and correct, that we have the right subscriber on the account, especially if a patient has more than one insurance. Just little details like this that we need to make sure that we pay attention to. And then we need to develop a pre-appointment readiness plan to have all patient and insurance information before the patient ever actually walks through the door and sits down in that dental chair. So I want you to know that if you're getting denials and rejections, I don't want you to beat yourself up about it, right? So even the most seasoned insurance guru can transpose numbers incorrectly when they're constantly interrupted and distracted, right? And your business team is constantly interrupted and distracted. Somebody's checking in, somebody's checking out, the phone's ringing. Oh, wait, I'm trying to verify insurance right now. I'm on hold with the insurance company and I'm trying to check somebody out. They have a question. Okay, now I'm hanging up. I'm going to check this person out. Okay, now I have to call them back. I was already on hold for like 30 minutes the last time I called. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot going on. It's easy to make a mistake sometimes. So if you have the opportunity to give somebody some private, like alone time where they're not inundated with phone calls or checking patients in and out, they're going to be able to be more focused in making sure that those things are submitted correctly. Again, that's exactly what we do at eAssist. And it lets your team do what they do best, right? They're there to take care and serve your patients. So, all right, let's move on here. I'm sorry, sometimes I talk a lot. I don't want to move behind time. I want to make sure I have time for questions.
Tiffany, we had one question.
Yeah. Right.
What are some must-do steps in a pre-appointment readiness plan, in your opinion?
Specifically for this, it would be verifying those insurance benefits, right? If it's a patient who you've seen before and they have the exact same insurance plan that they've always had, a lot of times that's simply verifying that the policy is still active, seeing if there's been any new history that's been added to the plan. Maybe they weren't able to come in. Maybe your office was closed because of COVID and they had an emergency. And somebody else was able to see them for that visit, right? So you just want to see what history it is. And you want to see if they, how much of their annual maximum that they've used or that's still available, is there a deductible that you need to take care of? If it's a new patient that you've never seen before, I highly suggest doing a complete and thorough full insurance breakdown. There's a lot that goes into insurance that sometimes we don't even realize. And I'm telling you, it's crazy. So there's a lot that I could say about it that I'm not, because I can go off on a tangent about it. I would say if you've got a lot of questions about this, I would send an email to businesssolutionsteam@henryschein.com and just tell them that I said to send this email, and I can send you a much more elaborated answer. That doesn't take the time to do. You're welcome. All right, so missing insurance verifications are the number one dental billing misstep, causing revenue cycle management chaos. In fact, the number one clinical error is actually not providing the documentation required to get claims paid in the clinical notes. So dental benefit consultants, these are the ones that actually make the decisions about whether or not claims are going to be paid. whether that surgical extraction is really a surgical extraction, because just because you place a suture doesn't mean it's a surgical extraction. Your clinical notes really need to document and state that the tooth had to be sectioned. In addition to that, the number one missed billing step is bypassing that insurance verification, which we were just talking about. So I'm going to give you an example. Have you ever had a big case, right? A patient was coming in and you were so excited, you were so happy. I'm going to do like a little cute Christmas vacation where Clark is dreaming about that pool that he's going to build in his backyard with that bonus check. Only to find out months later that this patient has a balance on their account because, as it turns out, their insurance was no longer active. And actually, those veneers that you placed, all 6 of them, actually pay out on the seat date, and the patient's policy termed December 31st, and you seated those on January 5th. This is all information that you could have known ahead of time, and you could have made pivots, right? You could have changed. You could have done things a little bit differently to make sure that you're helping the patient maximize their dental benefits, and you're not looking back on the back end and wanting to know, oh my God, what happened? Your pool, your backyard, like Clark, it's disappearing. So these are things that are just really important, little details that we don't think about. So what does an insurance eligibility look like? So we talked about this just a little bit ago. Again, I guess maybe I should have just skipped to this, but one, we're verifying that the patient has active coverage. We're confirming the active start date for that plan. We are determining how much of their annual maximum and deductible have been used, what's available. And we are confirming that all of the information is still the same and matches what's in the software. It's not comparing one insurance card to another. Is this exactly the way that it's listed in our software? That would include your the claims address, the group number, the payer ID. That's how you're going to get your checks, and all of that. And then the full insurance verification, again, is like a deeper dive that really breaks down those coverage amounts, covered and non-covered procedures, alternate benefits to different procedure codes. And frequencies, age restrictions, the list kind of goes on and on. You also want to make sure that you are storing a copy of the patient's insurance card and their photo ID in a designated place for all patients. I want to highly encourage you to reach out with to your HIPAA compliance officer to get details on where this should be and how it should be obtained. If you have to scan those into the computer, it's really important that you are ensuring that you're doing it in a way that maintains compliance. It's also really important to have not only the subscriber ID number, but the patient's or subscriber social security number as well. So the majority of insurance companies are going to require you to have that subscriber ID number. But if you're calling to get a breakdown of benefits or just to verify whether or not the plan is still active, a lot of times they're still going to help you as long as you have that social security number. Here's a fun pro tip. If you have a HIPAA secure texting service to contact patients, ask them to send you a photo of their insurance card prior to their appointment. This doesn't mean that they're texting your personal cell phone, right? HIPAA secure texting service. All right, tip number 6, treatment plans. So treatment plan acceptance really oftentimes hinges on something as simple as the words that we're using with our patients. So have you ever noticed that words kind of have a way of taking us closer to or further away from something? My son is really good at this. So the other day he comes in and he says to me, Mom, I want to play strings and I want to play the viola. This would be a great investment into my future, right? So he's good at this. And later, then he hits me up with like the year-long commitment and the 4-day-a-week rehearsals in the morning and after school. But at that point, I was already really sold on the fact that he felt like this was an investment in his future, and he was willing to kind of dedicate the time to make that happen. So it's funny how that word investment makes a difference. So again, I'm going to bring up my dear friend Lois because she is a rock star and amazing. She kind of has this rule of thumb with these two words that you see on the screen right now. So if it's under $500, it's a fee. If it's over $500, it's an investment in their dentistry. So instead of saying cost, you're going to say investment. Instead of saying price, you're going to say fee. It's really crazy how just like these minor changes really do make a big difference in your case acceptance. All right, so here's our next pro tip. I really want you guys to take some time to nail down that verbiage that you have as a team that will really show your patients that you care. And it also really helps set those clear expectations for patients' co-payments, and that payment is due at the time the services are rendered, right? But it's all in how you say it. So tip number 7 would be our financial processes. So setting clear financial protocols and processes. This is super important. One question that I get is, what's the difference between a financial acknowledgement and a financial agreement? So, and do I need both of these on top of a signed treatment plan? That seems like a lot for a filling. And the answer is maybe. So it really all kind of depends on your comfort level for risk. Let me explain the difference between these two forms. So the financial acknowledgement is the policy that you have in place for your practice. Is a payment due at the time of service? Do you accept assignment of benefits? Do you offer a senior citizen discount? Do you take American Express? Do you let people pay with subway coupons? This is all stuff that is included in your new patient paperwork packet. Your financial agreement is the written plan that you have in place for whatever that patient's specific treatment plan is. So let's say that you've got Mrs. Jones and she paid cash for fillings that she had last year, but really wants to finance whitening and getting veneers done on the maxillary this year. And last year, you got assigned treatment plan. So the little thing in your practice management software that prints out and says specifically what each treatment is that's being recommended. And you provided treatment on the same day. That treatment was then paid in full before Mrs. Jones ever left the office, right? You don't necessarily need a signed financial agreement for something that she's already paid for and she's already like gone home to let her anesthesia wear off. But this year there's going to be multiple visits involved, right? It's a larger investment from the patient. It's something that's going to happen over time. You're really going to want a signed financial agreement that outlines the total cost of treatment, estimated insurance that's going to pay towards that, and an estimated patient responsibility of what her part's going to be, and outlining the terms of payment. So maybe she set up with third-party financing. This is something that she's going to be taking care of over the next 12 months. Those are all things that would be indicated. Maybe she's paying with subway coupons, right? You need to make sure you write that down. All right, so number 8 would be our profit and loss reporting. I hope I didn't lose anybody when I said profit and loss. So calculating your practice hourly overhead rates is incredibly important. So why is your P&L so important? In the same way that a dentist can't diagnose treatment for a patient without radiographs, right? You can't diagnose the health of a practice without seeing a profit and loss statement and really having a true, accurate reflection of what overhead expenses are. So we're going to try to break this down to make it a little easier to understand. So if you say have total monthly overhead costs of about $20,000, you're going to take that number and you're going to divide it by the total monthly hours of operation. So how many hours is your practice open to see patients? That is going to give you your practice hourly overhead rate. So at this point, you would know if you were in this specific situation. So $20,000 of overhead costs, 144 hours of operation. Your practice hourly overhead rate is $138.80 per hour. You know at minimum that this is how much you need to be collecting per hour just to cover the cost of expenses. And you definitely need to be producing at least this, right? If you're collecting 98% of what you're producing, then you're getting pretty close. So we have another pro tip for you. Set scheduling goals to produce more per hour than your practice hourly overhead rates. Seems simple, but it's crazy. A lot of people don't know, or they have some kind of an estimate or idea, or they think, oh, I spend about this much each month. You really need to kind of narrow it down and take a closer look. You want to break your revenue and expenses down into a super practical application. So improving profitability doesn't only mean increasing production per hour, right? We want to take a deeper dive into that profit and loss statement. We want to know, what type of expense is this? How much am I spending on this every single month? What percentage of my overall overhead is this taking up? If you're spending, if 40 or 50% of your overhead is on salary, something needs to happen, right? A change is coming. And we really want to compare that individual monthly overhead expenses so that we can really see where it is that we can cut back and we can make changes so that we can really set ourselves up for success. So Dr. Warren Willis wrote a really amazing article in Dental Economics. I think it was at the end of August, maybe, on 12 ways to boost practice profitability. And he really highlights overhead in that and talks about ways on how to kind of rein in those expenses. So the national median overhead for general dentists, which he mentioned in this article, is 75%, while specialists are just a little bit underneath that at 74.9%. So if you want to figure out where your practice falls, you need to take your total monthly overhead expenses, and then you need to divide that by the number of total monthly collections. And if you are right around that range, maybe that looks good for you. If your overhead is 110%, you're spending more than you're making, it's okay to ask for help, right? You don't have to be perfect. And don't be afraid to negotiate. When was the last time that you reached out to the insurance companies that you are in network with and asked them if you can raise your rates? When's the last time you called your dental lab and you asked them if you really were getting the best fee? Just something to think about. So again, making sure that number is true and real and accurate and not just your best guess. Super important. So when tackling revenue cycle management, we really have to change our mindsets about what we think is possible. We need to set aggressive goals and use the tools that we've outlined today to really learn from those who have already figured it out, right? We are an industry full of high achievers. And again, like I said, that doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. High achievers really have a really hard time asking for help. They feel like they should always have to have it figured out. But it's okay, right? Like reinventing the wheel probably isn't the best example of efficiency. We don't have to have that scarcity mindset. We really need to focus on the future and realize that there's enough to go around for everybody. So we're here to help each other out. eAssist is here to help you. Schein is here to help you. Again, if you have any questions, we're going to get to those in a minute. If for some reason we don't get a chance to get to your question today, reach out to business solutions team at henryschein.com. And I promise that we will find a way to point you in the right direction. I have one quote that I want to leave you guys with. It's by Napoleon Hill, and it's one of my favorites. And he says that the biggest reason for failure is the inability to make new plans, to replace the plans that didn't work, right? So I really am hoping that these 8 revenue cycle management tools will help you guys identify what's not working and really kind of help you highlight where you need to pivot and make some changes. So I really enjoyed spending some time with you guys today. And
thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're here to deliver peace of mind. That's like our motto.
Thank you, Tiffany. And we have a few questions. First question was, who could help to analyze extremely high overhead of a practice I'm looking at?
That's a really great question. We have a lot of different options available. I'm not sure how I'm allowed to answer that question, if I'm being completely honest. So can we get their name, and can I reach out to them afterwards once I figure out how I'm allowed to answer that?
Definitely. And then
always recommend hiring some kind of a consultant of some kind that can help really narrow down your.
Another question that we had was, what are some of the more common or average floor limits, as you mentioned, that you've seen?
I would say it's usually somewhere around $500 to $1,000. So if the patient's estimated out of pocket is going to be somewhere less than $500, a lot of practices feel fine with not getting that financial agreement. Other practices feel totally comfortable with kind of hiring that threshold to about $1,000. But again, it's up to you. You know your practice and your patients, and what you feel comfortable as an owner, accepting for that floor limit. That's got to be a personal choice for you.
Thank you, Tiffany, for the excellent presentation. And thank you to eAssist for sponsoring this webinar as well. The recording of today's webinar will be sent out to everyone via email within 1 week. So stay tuned for that. And lastly, if there are any additional questions, please feel free to connect with the eAssist team or email us at webinars@henryschein.com. Thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great night.
Thank you guys so much.